This was a terrarium. Technically, it still is, but emotionally, it gave up a few weeks ago. You could probably try and save something like this, prune it a bit here, wipe some glass, pretend it's fine, like the plant version of staying in a relationship for the rent, or you could do what I did, rip it out and start again, because sometimes the most efficient form of growth is destruction. Plus, it's more fun. And messier, which feels productive even if it isn't. Today I'm going to be showing you how I ignored this sensible option and redesigned this Bioscape Nano Moss Terrarium. The first step to any great rebuild of a terrarium is destruction. So I pulled its guts out. My previous design was a blend of rabbit's foot fern, moss and aquarium soil that had been all shucked up into one circular cuddle. And at the time I thought more nutrients means better growth. But what I didn't consider was how much growth. It turns out if you put high nutrient soil into a tiny terrarium with little tiny plants, you don't get a peaceful bonsai jungle. You get an overachieving moss monster that eats the space and your sense of control. So this time I'm going with something a bit gentler, less fertilizer, fewer regrets. Because in the world of terrariums, sometimes it's not about feeding your plants, it's about starving them just enough for them to stay cute. With the soil removed and my precious decisions metaphorically and literally wiped away, I cleaned the glass. And now I have a fresh canvas, a new start, new hopes, new dreams, and no idea what I was doing next. So naturally, I went scavenging. Not buying plants, no, scavenging. Around the store, quietly, subtly, like a raccoon on a botanical heist. First, I liberated some immersed Hydrocotyle tripartita from a display tank. It looks absolutely gorgeous when it's immersed, like tiny green hands reaching out to hug your poor life choices. Then I made some cuttings of the Ficus creeping fig that's been growing out of the top of our biggest display tank. And finally, Utricularia graminifolia, or UG, my favourite plant ever. Right now it lives fully submerged, but it can also grow immersed. And when it does, it produces delicate, stunning little flowers. But don't let the cuteness fool you. It's actually carnivorous. It has tiny bladder traps that catch tiny little microorganisms and digest them slowly, alive. It's brutal, and also kinda inspiring. If I were a plant, I'd want to be this one. It looks soft but eats people. With my plant loot secured, it was time for the hardscape. I wanted something that looked like a little miniature ancient tree stump, the kind a fairy might live in, or that might whisper secrets if you stare at it long enough and haven't slept. I found a piece of driftwood with a little hole in it, which was perfect, mysterious, possibly cursed. Now when I say I'm a scavenger, I mean it, through and through. I like junk. I like human trash. Check out my previous video on how I built a studio from capitalism's leftovers. But I also like plant trash. Specifically, the neglected, overlooked mounds of moss growing in my parents' backyard. They don't see it. They don't care about it. To them, it's just green stuff. To me, it is absolute treasure. So today, I've brought some treasure with me. My personal stash. The forgotten, unwanted, deliciously damp moss I've hoarded like a dragon sleeping on a soggy pile of gold. And I'll be using it as the carpet for this scape, because nothing says luxury like an unpaid for ground cover. But before we could start, I thought I'd fix a problem I had already encountered. The driftwood, it was perfect, but too big. So I did what any other delusional human would do. I tried to break it with my bare hands, like I was a bear or a strongman or both, and it didn't work. So I put it down, thought about life, then for whatever reason I just decided to do it again, convinced that maybe this time I'd be stronger, and I wasn't. At this point my monkey brain decided to do the decent thing, evolve, and reach out for a tool. And that said tool was my boot. I gave up on precision entirely and gave it a good gutter stomp. Not out of rage, but out of a deep spiritual acceptance that I'm just a monkey with hobbies. But then only one piece fit. So what did I do? I believed in my monkey self. And again with the hands, Holly, god damn it. But it worked. It worked. That's a win for me in the biceps. With my wood broken and my materials artfully arranged around me because I enjoy it and it looks good on camera, I was ready to begin the build. So first step, the base layer. I added a layer of Leca, the forbidden cocoa pops, to the bottom. This helps keep the soil aerated. But more importantly, everyone else here on YouTube does it, so now I do. Which means I'm officially part of that cult. Do I technically need it? Maybe not, but do I fear being shunned by the algorithm? Absolutely. So next, the soil. Technically, it's just a mix of leftover dirt from plants that I've killed in the past. Sorry, Steve. I'm sorry, Steve. There's some bark, a bit of perlite in there, and not much nutrients, which is ideal because I don't want my plants acting like they're on a cycle. I want them relaxed, meditative, maybe even just a little bit depressed. And with the soil in, I had a moment of clarity. Not the kind that solves anything, the kind that makes you realize that you hate the dragonstone you've chosen. It was too big, it's too loud, it didn't whisper enchanted forest, it screamed, I am rock. So like any dedicated gremlin mid-project, I returned to the real world, back out into the fluorescent lit wilds of the store, scavenging, foraging, hunting for smaller pieces, the subtle, mysterious, emotionally balanced stones that would quietly tie the scene together. And like the rock goblin dragging treasure back into her lair, I returned, triumphant, dusty, and mildly concerned I was just trying to avoid making an actual start. But alas, I made a start. I chose a piece of small dragonstone that would look nice up the front. The idea was to create a little platform, like the tree stump had emerged from an ancient stone, very nature reclaiming ruins energy. And when I placed that stump on top, it fit perfectly, right in the natural grooves of the stone, like it was just meant to be there. No struggle, just destiny. And then came the hard part, continuing the hardscape. Every rock that looked good didn't fit, because as I forgot again, the terrarium opens like a bottle, and I'm trying to shove in a sculpture. So I adapted. Instead of building out, I built up. I broke the wood down and stacked a new piece on top for height, and glued it like a woman who definitely meant to do it that way all along. Then I added a smaller piece of dragonstone at the front for flow, and another to the left to fill out the empty space. And then I paused, because I realized if I add more, it would just look clunky. If I add too much driftwood, it'll just outdo my tree stump look. And if I add too many rocks, it's just geology in a jar. So I added some soil to the back for height and accepted it. Let it breathe. Told myself the plants will fill in the annoying gaps later, and if they don't, I'll simply pretend they were intentional voids. And with that, we moved on to the planting. Planting was surprisingly simple, mostly because I already had the perfectly shaped rabbit's foot fern, left over from before. So it was perfect for the terrarium, like a returning cast member in a reboot that no one asked for, but somehow just works. I trimmed it a little, popped it back in, and let it reclaim its rightful throne right at the back, just to fill in some height. Then came the Hydrocotyle tripartita. I tucked it into the back and the sides like a leafy filler that's meant to make it look intentional. And then my favourite part, the moss. I cut my moss carpet to size and laid it over the soil like a mossy little rug. Then I grabbed some star moss, I think it's star moss, which grows upright, very vertical, very proud of itself. I cut a few healthy tufts and placed it between the flat moss and the dragonstone, like tiny feature cushions for woodland fairies. I added some creeping fig too, not because I thought it fit, but because I'd already taken the cuttings and sort of felt bad throwing them away. I was emotionally blackmailed by plants, again. Then for drama, I popped in a little bit of moss on top of the rocks just to add a little crown to the stump. Finally, I added the UG to the front. It's currently in its submerged form, so it might be in a little bit of shock. But then again, so am I most days, and I still get things done. I'm gonna keep an eye on it and hope it adjusts. Maybe say a few gentle words, maybe not. Then I sprayed the whole thing down into submission, and that's it. The terrarium is done. It's not perfect, but it's built, it's planted, and it hasn't collapsed, so I'm gonna count that as a win. And along the way, we learned some things. We don't saw directly onto the table unless you want an earthquake effect. Your hands are not stronger than driftwood, no matter how many martial arts classes you've done. And most importantly, the best moss isn't bought, it's stolen. And now, ladies and gentlemen, before we finish, I have something I've got to say, literally. Could you bless me with something? Like and subscribe wise. I'm sorry guys, I got told to say this, blame Steve, so here I am saying it. Please go ahead and just jab cross, hook cross that like and subscribe button, just smash it. Absolutely just double leg takedown, side control, neon belly to mount, then head and arm choke. Those buttons, that would be amazing. Make that algorithm happy. Validate me in the most weird, modern, and least personal way possible, because apparently it helps with visibility, with reach, with feelings, or don't, and hopefully I'll figure out how to still keep this job.